Cool.
Live. I
So-
don't think they can see you though, Nathaniel. It's all good.
It's okay.
all
I think he poked in there.
I can scoot over.
I poked in there.
Try to
I
get
poked in there.
Nathaniel Bittman over here. You know.
Yeah, we're good.
I-
we're good.
Yeah. See if you can get it over just a little bit. See if you can get.
Tiny bit. That'd be good right there.
Might
That's
get Adam
perfect.
out of
Yep,
it.
that's good.
You know?
He's in it.
No, it's perfect.
All right, you're in
Smaller
there.
I
So
am,
are you
the
launching
smaller
on
I
your?
am, the better I am. You're good, man.
Are you launched? We're going.
We're
We're
live.
going. We're live.
Well, so here we are. I think we're like at our first actual annual post-holiday, upcoming New Year's event of our FAMP discussion on what's happening in the market. This is the FAMP Jam Session. And I'm here with three very cool cats, like super cool cats. So why don't you guys introduce yourself? Why don't you go first there, AZ?
All right, Adam Zima, chapter president for Gulf Coast, president Champions Mortgage, co-founder of some software,
That's
MLO
awesome.
Flow. You know,
What brought you into FAMP?
man.
Yeah, what did bring you in FAMP? It's a good question.
So I felt like FAMP, and this is kind of crazy, but I felt like FAMP was like, right, I'm in this industry, so it's kind of like AAA. I own a car, so I should have a AAA membership because the parents always did it, right?
It's good.
So I didn't know a whole lot, just want to be part of something or kind of network, especially I had a processing company before this, right? So go meet some brokers, try to drum up some business. It was a third-party processing company. Little did I know that FAMP had so much when it
And
comes
FAMP is Florida Association of Mortgage Professionals.
yeah. So I didn't realize how much with the lobbyist group that we now have, right?
Right.
With the networking socials, the trade shows,
Yeah,
the golf outings.
yeah.
Just for me, the networking was key, right? Because I was trying to drum up more business, but I was also trying to connect with like-minded people who could help me grow my business.
Right.
And I found that a lot of people in this industry, especially ones that aren't plugged into organizations, they are all about themselves. They aren't about doing what's right for the industry. And that was the big thing, was just being with this like-minded people who, man, I have a problem with this. Hey, why don't you do this to restructure it, right? So now I'm kind of that same way. Kind of drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. So I am out here helping people with other companies. Hey, here's this loan program. Go get signed up with this investor, because we've met so many of them through the trade show.
And FAMP gives you that value.
Heck yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Well, we don't want to burn up all of our time talking about what FAMP does for us. We got Ryan, Brad, Nathaniel. What's
going
What
on?
we really want to talk about, which is most important, is what's happening in our industry. So what do you think, Ryan? Where do you want to go from here?
I feel like there's some really exciting times, essentially, right?
Okay.
So we are seeing applications fall off, but we're also seeing times where sellers are being super excited about listing their properties and providing seller concessions. But I know Brad here is talking to a ton of different agents. Brad, what are you seeing from the agent side of it?
Before you jump into that, I think what we're seeing too is a kind of a shift in the market, right? Because the things that we used to do, the conforming inside the box products, those aren't the products that are really driving champions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of non-QM, it's a lot of bank statement loans, it's reverse mortgage.
So explain that for just a moment. Like when you talk about non-traditional, you're talking about a class of customer now. Has your class of customer changed?
It really has, right? The conforming people are kind of sitting back. The people who are in their home, they're sitting back, they're waiting to see what is going to happen with this market. What's going to happen with the rates, the values, right?
So your traditional full documentation, put a lot of money down. They're on the sidelines.
Yeah, there's still some there, especially where we are in the Tampa market.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be here.
Yeah.
So
Number 3 hottest market in the country still.
Yeah.
So we do see that, and you would see that, I guess, more.
Yeah, I mean, it's slowing down a little bit, but I don't think it's slowing down to a point where, I'm still getting deals. As on the title side of things, right? Like, we just really got to see, who's out there getting the deals. And what I really see happening a lot is if someone lists the property at the right price, right? And they're not, because a lot of times people are so used to, I've been in the industry since 2018. You guys have all been in the industry. We've all been in different parts of the industry.
Different types of industry, yeah.
But the last couple years, it was like you had a listing, that thing was selling by the end of the week, right?
Well, yeah, you had a listing and you're going over asking price, and right?
Yeah, and now, it's just if something's priced right, but I really think it comes down to educating our customers, like on the title side, I see this, right? And I'm kind of, I work with the agents, I work with the mortgage people, and obviously refis have slowed down, right? Refis have slowed down a little bit, but there's still some refis out there. So I think we really just have to educate these people on why they should refinance or why they should sell their house.
Yeah.
And that's really going to be the solution to the problem. I mean, markets always change. That's what happens, right? You just got to figure out how to win.
Yeah, but you mentioned something earlier. Dial into this part. I think it's what everybody wants to know, what they want to hear.
Okay.
You're seeing that homes have been listed on the market for much, much longer in the Bay Area than ever before.
Yeah. I think the biggest reason why is I don't think they're priced right. I think that, one of the things that we're seeing, I had a conversation with an appraiser buddy of mine, and he was telling me that, one of the things is that some things are, one of the reasons why they're sitting a little bit longer is because comps aren't as accurate as we think they are right now. Right?
Comparables.
So, yeah, comparables.
Comps meaning comparables.
So I'm talking
Comparables
realtor a little bit.
Yeah, you're talking housing language, but for those of you who are tuning in, we're seeing that comparable sales, homes comparable to what you're listing, is not going for the same price. But, but let's jump over to Ryan just for 1 second, because we talk about deceleration.
Right, absolutely.
Can you share, just so people understand, there's the media loves to take advantage now and saying, what an opportunity to talk about the housing market collapsing now.
Are we really seeing a collapse?
But that's what I mean. Can you talk about deceleration? It's not a collapse.
I don't
Isn't it
think there's a
deceleration?
collapse.
Yeah, I feel like it's
I think it's
stability,
correction,
right? Like
maybe?
you're seeing that plateau right
Right,
now. I mean,
so
you're
correction.
seeing right.
Can you guys talk about the correction?
You're seeing the correction as well as I am, essentially across all fields, right?
I mean, we see it from the appraisal standpoint. We see it from sellers giving concessions, which hadn't happened for a long time. I mean, look at builders right now, what they're doing to try to get their homes closed too.
The builder market is definitely. Let's talk about builders. Just side note for that, Builders are trying to move inventory, and what they have the ability to do right now is they will raise the price of homes, and they'll give you back a concession. Now, not every builder may do that, but it's a brilliant strategy, because what it does is if you have a new construction, as an example, for $400,000, why not bump it up to $420,000 but give a concession for $20,000?
Right.
And now you're giving it towards somebody's closing costs or buying down the rate. What they're doing is they're still preserving the value of that development. My question for you is, if that's a strategy, will that development appreciate in value?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. We saw this too in some of the CRA markets where you get rebuilding together Tampa Bay, right? They'd come in and they would get property and they would build on it, and then they would sell that home at a not-for-profit price. And so what they have to do is they have to sell it at the comparable market, right? So if they're doing 3 or more homes, that's great after the third home. It's easy after that, right? But those first few homes, it's tough, because nothing is brand new in that area, in those areas. So builders, they're going to have, as long as they get their comparables, their first few comparables sold that we need, right? Then it'll be easy. But I don't know right now with the market, what's happening. You're going to see these homes not coming in at value. And we had this isn't the first time this has happened. I mean, all of this is cyclical, maybe not to the scale, but we have before had this same issue.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to see these homes coming in at value.
For how long? Would you say that? Are you thinking we're not going to appreciate in the next year?
Correct. We're not going to appreciate, but that's what we have done for so long, is just said, okay, well, 3 months ago this house sold for this, so let's go ahead and, slap an extra few $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, and we've got buyers waiting. I'm going to give you $20,000, $50,000.
You're talking about a year ago market.
Right.
Yeah.
So builders' strategy has to change. They're giving all of these concessions,
incentives, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
But if the appraisal is not supporting it, where does it get?
That is the challenge. You're almost creating a little bit of a market. I mean, what do you want to address? Anything on deceleration? Because last year we were 20%,
right? So I think what we were talking about earlier too was essentially we saw that there's going to be some deceleration in the market. However, not buying is probably the worst thing you could do. Essentially,
sure.
Yeah. On average, it's 4 to 5%, right?
For appreciation?
For appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, a balanced market is about 4.5%. People have to realize we were year over year for several years at 20% appreciation. So put that in math, a $400,000 home in year one would go to $480,000.
Right.
Wow.
But a $400,000 home today may not go to $480,000. It's still appreciating.
But what do you think the percentage is actually going to be?
The numbers now that they're showing in the Bay Area is a 13% appreciation rate. Okay. So yeah, I mean, the media will say, well, we're not at a 20% appreciation rate, we're at 13%, so the market is collapsing. We're still appreciating 13%.
Yeah.
So that's the part people understand. We're still better than 4.5%, which year over year has been about the trajectory.
So Brad, are you seeing that, especially with the agents that are having those listings on the market for such a exorbitant amount of time, being 30, 45, 60 days, are you seeing that from the agents explaining that to the sellers?
I would say that not everyone explains it to the sellers the best way that they could, right? I think that because obviously, I mean, real estate's going to appreciate, right, over time. And markets change. You know, obviously, the last couple of years was different. And that's where I was getting at with that a little bit earlier, is that there was a lot of new agents in the last couple of years that they've never experienced. They didn't know what the market was like in 2019, 2018. And if you go back, we are appreciating from those years.
Correct.
Right?
We are appreciating.
So,
right.
you know, I think that's one of the things you just got to think about. And, you know, one of the solutions, that's what I was going to ask you guys, what do you guys think some of the solutions to these problems are? You know?
Man, that's such a great question, too.
Time.
It's a good answer.
Time.
It's a good answer.
Time. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a short-term hold, if you're in the mindset that, you know, a year ago, so let's talk about interest rates. This is kind of a general pro quote, right? About a year ago today, rates were at about 4.25%, 4.25%, and the market was devastated a year ago, thinking, my God, I'm not at 2.99 anymore. But where are rates today? All things being equal, 720 credit score bar, 6.5, 6.5. So depending on your adjustments, but what a significant change from 4.5 to 6.5 in the duration of 1 year. So that's going to impact buying power. But what I would say is once you see interest rates drop and people's buying power goes up again, you will see a line out the door yet again, simply for the fact of supply and demand. When you were talking about building, we see that with new house formations, there's about 1.7 million new household formations, but there's approximately 1 million new builds coming into the market. So already in 2023, we're going to be a shortfall of about 700,000 homes nationally for new construction. So we're still at an undersupply.
That's wild. That's wild to think. Are you seeing that on some of the appraisals that are coming in?
Everything that we have right now is coming in fine. We've had a few near misses,
Yeah.
but those were I've looked at those and they're, I would say, property specific. They're not to the whole market. But we're still in that time frame, right, in that window of time where this is so new that those old comps are still lingering out in a lot of those neighborhoods. So you can get that inflated value, which is really not inflated, right? It is the value. So I guess that's not the proper way to say it, but you get what I'm saying.
And I think Nathaniel has a good point too. With rates are going to come down a little bit eventually, right? And I think that people are going to see that. And just like how when people were still refining when rates were at the 2s and they went to the 4s, they're like, well, we want to refi. People are going to see that rates went up. So I don't think you should wait to buy either right now, right? Because you don't want to just always be waiting on the rates. Because that's one of the things right now. I mean, I don't know if you guys are hearing this a lot in the market, but it's like marry the house, date the rate, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things right now is the rates are always going to be changing. Throughout history, rates always change.
They will.
But you also, I don't think you want to wait for them to come down to 5%.
So let me ask you, what do you really, let's put this whole rate thing aside. What do you really think people are waiting to have happen? What do you think? Ryan, what do you think?
What do I think?
Well, why do you think people,
I think people live in fear, right?
Okay.
People live in fear of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, when they think of buying a house, it's a large purchase. They have to put down what they think might be an exorbitant amount of money, right?
Yeah.
Which could only be 3.5%, 5%, right? Mm-hmm. However, people are afraid to do that. So I think they live in this bubble of fear that is fed to them by media, essentially, that says, hey, we are telling you rates are going to come down, so if you wait, you're going to catch that one point where the rates are what you feel like are perfect, and the housing prices are where you need to be. But we all know as a group that essentially what's going to happen is that transition is going to happen. Like you said, you're going to be back to buyers. 10 offers on one table, right?
This is simply a function of supply and demand. I mean, you have a massive growing population. The baby boomers are migrating into Florida. You look at your generation, the millennials, right? The millennials are the largest in their buying power peak, which is 35 to 45 in terms of their age range. They are now getting into the marketplace, and that is the largest population, only to be superseded by the post-millennials, which is your group, is even larger at the buying power peak for millennials.
Yeah, but their parents aren't kicking them out, so why would they go anywhere?
Well, I mean, but you literally have no supply for massive growing demand. So to me, it's a function of, I think, people think we're going back to 2008. You mentioned that earlier. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think people are afraid of that. I mean, we hear that all the time, right? And I think the media is trying to act like that's what could happen. I don't
bubble.
think we're going to see. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that again. I
Why?
really don't, because right now, there's still less inventory than there was if you go back to 2008.
Absolutely, yes.
So one of the reasons why 2008 happened, and it's funny. I know I'm a young guy, but I remember what happened with that.
You've seen
right?
the movies.
Yeah, I've seen
You've
The Big
seen
Short,
movies,
right?
that's Everyone watch The Big Short.
Yeah, I actually have seen The Big Short, but it's a completely different situation because one, there's more regulations now that they can't do a lot of the
Correct.
things they did back in
Right.
2008.
That's right. Ability to repay.
But also they're even if, especially in Florida, right? Especially in Florida, people still want to live here, and there's still less inventory. There's still there's a little bit more inventory than there was,
Right.
but as soon as rates come down, there's going to be even less inventory. So
100%.
I don't see 2008 happening again, just because I think we're set up for that not to happen. I think that it definitely has declined a little bit, but I don't think the market's going to crash. And people want to live here because they love Florida.
So let's talk about that. What that feels like. I think the feeling of 2008 would happen again, because for people that are buying expecting appreciation values to be 20% a year over year, when you find out I bought a home for $400,000 and I've only really gone up to about $420,000, which is a nice balanced market, you're like, I didn't go up to the $480,000 that I was expecting. Boy, the housing market's going to collapse. Keep in mind that a balanced market is about a 4% appreciation, 5% appreciation. So a $400,000 home should go for about $420,000.
That's not
healthy.
sustainable, though. That growth isn't sustainable. And then the other issue we run into is people who are looking for first-time home buyers, right? People who are first-time home buyers.
Sure.
They're
Yeah.
coming in. These people who are trying to buy their first house, not for $150,000 or $200,000. We're talking $300,000-$400,000 for a lot of these homes. And I think unfortunately, there's so many people that live here who can't buy a home because it prices them out based on what they're making, right? So you have that low to moderate income, but you don't have the housing that can sustain that population. So you kind of, especially in this Tampa market, it's such a weird dynamic that we've seen kind of played out over and over. I'm scared but excited at the same time.
So let me put you on the spot. $400,000 home. What would you say a payment like that would go for today?
Yeah, nobody wants to put any money down or has any money to put
So
down.
that leads a good question, though,
What-
because FAMP just pushed for Hometown Heroes.
They
right?
did push
So
for
first,
Hometown Heroes.
first responders, military, and teachers, right?
Yeah, FAMP.
Essentially.
And by the way, you want to become a member of the FAMP, very important. That's what it's all about. So you get this really good, valuable information from industry experts like ourselves and many others. But you're right. Recently, the Florida Association of Mortgage Professionals was able to push some expanded legislation to have mortgage brokers have the ability to provide that product. And that's what you're going with.
Now, are we going to see that as brokers out there? Essentially, are we going to see that product be able to expand our portfolios?
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of lenders offering that because the margins are so tight on a program like that.
Correct.
A lot of these programs where the banks are offering it's because they have those W-2 in-house salaried employees, so it's kind of a numbers game.
Yeah. Yeah, the margins are so thin on the Hometown Heroes program that it may not be as attractive for certain people to promote that product.
Especially non-depository, right, lenders, because
Correct.
they don't need those CRA credits that the banks need.
That's right.
So they're paying those incentives for those CRA credits from the
Yeah.
Treasury Department. So
It's going to be a very interesting piece to see how that evolves. But let's say a $400,000 transaction, somebody puts 5% down, that payment probably going to be somewhere around $3,000.
I'd agree to that. $3,000.
Maybe $3,300 roughly between taxes and
and
insurance and
insurance.
mortgage insurance.
yeah.
$3,300. So that means that in order to qualify for that loan, if somebody has absolutely no debt whatsoever, you got to have household income of minimum $80,000 a year.
Yeah.
About that, roughly, give or take,
For your first home.
for your first home.
Right.
So if you have a double income home and you have all these other expenses, you got to be north of $100,000 to be able to get into a $400,000 home.
But let's not even talk about like what's on their credit expenses, right? Let's just
Right.
talk about your normal groceries, gas.
Correct.
Your kids in volleyball, your other kids in gymnastics, right? How are they going to afford it? That's the real question.
That is
Yeah,
the real
that's-
question.
that's
I think that's the obstacle that we talk about affordable housing, where you could have a stall, is when you get compressed, where you can't make a payment of $3,300 a month to get into a home in a school district in an area that you want to. That creates a buying power crunch. However, if you drop that payment from good budget, good fiscal policy, all things being equal, if that payment for the same home goes from $3,300 down to $2,500, you're now in the game.
Right, absolutely.
So if you think now is a bad time to buy, what happens when those payments go down to $2,500? You are opening the door to a whole surge of people that have tremendous buying power that are now demanding for that home for $400,000,
For sure.
which will exponentially rise and drive the price of that home up.
But if we're saying that home values aren't going to drop, the only way to give that additional buying power,
You're saying it
rates
wouldn't drop,
dropping.
right? Yes, rates would have to drop.
Rates
Correct.
would have to drop, but I mean they'd have to drop quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean that's a drop. One full percentage point on 400,000 is basically $4,000 a year in interest. That's approximately $350 a month. So, yeah, you know, depending on where your payments at, but $350 is a lot. That's a car payment.
And
for
they gotta qualify now to get the house now because we're talking about increasing 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
It's definitely a tricky spot for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think it should motivate people to make some more money, to be honest with you. You know, I know that's very simple,
You
but
sound
I
like
think,
Kim Kardashian. You're gonna get canceled. Right?
No, I think it'll motivate people, though. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things we have to be real with and have this conversation is that, you know, I think that if people are educated at this and they know that, okay, well, if I can make some more money, I can really make that happen. I think that's a huge thing. I mean, I really think
I think it's something to consider. What do you think about that? Just got to go make more money.
I think that's tough, though. So
It is.
you're telling the average person now they have to work 2 or 3 jobs.
And do it
So
for
do
2
both.
years. Yeah, have some kids, man.
Have some
You'll
ki-
get
have
used to
some
working.
kids.
You'll get used to working a couple jobs. You got gymnastics. You got
So-
lacrosse. You got everything else that goes along.
Is
with
that
it.
possible though? I mean, like when you think about it as a solution, you just have to be able to make more money. I mean, is that really?
And I know that sounds like, and I know the way I said that probably doesn't sound the best, but hear me out on this, right?
Okay.
When you are educated, and that's where I was going back to educating people on, you know, really understanding what's going on in this market, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, you know, yeah, you right now we look at that, right? A $400,000 house. We're talking a $3,000 a month payment, $3,500. You know, if you know that, you're gonna adjust your goals, right? We're going in the new year. It's New Year's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always ways to make more money. Now I understand there's certain jobs, like if somebody's a teacher or something like that, you know, maybe budget somewhere and then go and buy an investment property, right? And maybe that's the type of property that you try to qualify for. So you know, you can actually learn how to cash flow from your real estate property,
duplexes?
right?
Right.
Yeah.
FHA.
So
but you need to have more money
I-
down going into those.
but
about
exactly.
FHA?
But I think
You
that
can, or you can just adjust. I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is do a fiscal review. When we look at bank statements, right? When we look at bank statements, and somebody says to me, "This is out of scope of what I'm willing to pay," or "It's not affordable," and I look at a bank statement that I review, I notice that in the course of that month, wow, you went to Bonefish a few times. You had a pretty good time there, and I notice I know that this is pre-Christmas holidays, but you sure enjoyed spending at the Gap and also at the mall.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
You've been at Starbucks.
They got 300. It's a car payment. A lot of
What-
Starbucks.
what-
But
so-
people
right,
don't
when you
want to
don't
change their lifestyle.
Well, that's the key here. I think the key is that you have to start. To me, as opposed to raising your income, is if you want to get into the right school district, get into the right home, the first thing you got to do is pull out your bank statement, do a fiscal review. I think you'd be surprised how much frivolous spending people are probably making.
That'll
We
give
see
you
it,
down,
right?
that'll give
Yeah.
you down payment money, but that's not. They're gonna
Oh,
without
300
that they're gonna qualify for what they qualify for when we're qualifying them on gross income.
That is
So
true.
a lot of people just aren't qualifying because, and they can go get that second job, but they better keep it for 2 years,
Right.
And it needs to be
Right.
consistent.
And that's where I was going at with that. Like, there's so many opportunities nowadays, though, right? And that's where when I say make more money, I just said it because it also it kind of gets
No, I
attention.
get
But
it.
essentially,
Well,
say
if you look
Uber.
worried about that cancel
No,
culture.
No, I'm not.
No, you're
believe
not
what I
wrong.
say.
You're not wrong.
I know.
If I'm going to move to California, I got to make more money. If I
Right.
move to Colorado, I got to make more money.
And that's why I said, because I don't regret saying that at all. I really believe that that's one of the huge solutions. to
Yeah,
this,
I
right?
don't disagree with
mean,
you.
We all carry around these phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
This phone, how much does this cost? $1,200? Stupid, right?
We don't even think
Stupid.
about it. We're like, it's a
We-
monthly payment.
yeah.
Oh, finance it over 3 years.
Right?
That's
We're,
right.
we're like,
That's right.
we need
Yeah,
to get
good
this
point.
phone. We got to have the best iPhone,
Yeah.
right? So if you really want something, you're going to figure out how to make
Yeah.
it happen, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing is we need to educate these people. And if people really want something, if somebody really wants a real estate property, they're going to figure out how much time they have in a day and maybe they could make some different decisions to make more money, right? So I think it's a huge, it's one of the biggest solutions, and I think that not everybody has that mindset, and it's
intimidating.
It is.
It's
Yeah,
intimidating.
Which part's intimidating?
Buying a home, right? Because you're not talking about I just need $1,200, right? You're talking about I need $10, $20, $30,000 for down payment and closing costs.
But wait a minute.
So saving up that amount of money when you're making 45, 50 grand a year, right? It is intimidating. So you're like, I'll just keep renting and then I'll get that new iPhone.
But that's exactly what he's trying to say. Curtail
Right.
your lifestyle.
That's why I was
Just a
going full
hair.
circle back
Just a hair,
to
right?
Yeah,
and
budget.
what's one of the biggest things in the market right now, right? Outside of your down payment, who's covering your closing costs? Sellers.
Sellers or builders.
are
Yeah, you
willing
could get in, yes.
to give you
Yeah.
just
I
a
was
little
going to
bit
say
of
parents' gifts, but gift for
No,
parents.
no,
parents, you
no,
better give me those gifts.
Ryan is right.
Parents' gift for
And it's
parents.
really a good point. If there ever was
They
a
just want you out of
time
their basement.
in a very long time that sellers are willing to help you potentially work with your closing costs, now's the time. Which on a $400,000 transaction could save you about $12,000 or $14,000 right there.
for sure, right?
Right?
Or they're
That
helping you
used to
drop
be
that
the
rate,
norm.
right?
That
Yeah, it
used to be
the norm.
until
But
about
the
a year and a
pandemic
half
changed
ago,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Everything year and a half, 2
Right.
years,
Yeah.
kind of
Destroyed.
fizzled out. Now we're seeing that starting to come back.
Well, we gave everybody here a lot of information, and this is the FAMP Jam Session with these cool cats. So I'm wishing everybody a happy new year. Thanks for tuning in, and join us for the next jam session, right? What do you guys think?
Talk about some taxes. I want to talk about those.
Ooh, we're gonna talk about
Yeah,
taxes,
taxes.
property
Those
taxes.
property taxes,
Property
what we're
taxes
seeing
and
with that.
insurance. Insurance is the next section, and property taxes. There's
Yeah.
something you need to know going into the next
Let's do
year. File your homestead exemption if you bought a home, and man, we appreciate you. So,
Appreciate you guys. Keep
have a
winning.
happy new year. Join us for the next jam session.
Cool.